This is Hospitality One2One, conversations on the industry. Here's your host, Chris Bennis.
Joining us on the Hospitality One2One Podcast. Today's kind of a special episode, if you will. It's an episode about, well, us, actually. Wanted to take a couple of moments and just speak more about why we've decided to do this Hospitality One2One Podcast. So joining me today is John Carpenter. John is the Director of Operations and Executive Recruiter for Snelling Hospitality. He happens to be my boss as well. Anyways, so I wanted to take a couple minutes. John and I have kind of partnered together to put this podcast together, and let's just talk a little more about the why, if you will, for the podcast, John.
Sounds great.
So I guess, first of all, we talk about employer brand.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it so important that companies focus on that?
Companies do a fantastic job of a couple different things, but the first thing they really do is they do focus on their brand as a whole, right? It's going to be whatever brand it is and what is known to your clients or your guests. But the one part of the employer brand that they don't pay attention to is the backside, the side where it brings people to want to work for you and kind of want to be a part of your culture that you do so. So the difference being is that the employer brand actually means somebody wanting to work for you as opposed to somebody wanting to buy your product.
Gotcha. Now, you've kind of talked about the employer brand. Let's define two different areas. Mm-hmm. What's the difference between process and culture?
Well, they're both actually, everything ties into employer brand. So when we talk about that, it's pretty important. So your culture is what you deliver every day, and it's what you honestly feel your values and your core, brings to not only your employees but your customers as well. And your employer brand ties into that, or should tie into that as well, because you want to hire people who not only speak to your culture but also can speak to your employer brand. And then you want those people to kind of, like I said before, want to work for you.
Now, why is this so important? I mean, employer brand, of course, is essential for any type of industry, whether it be retail, hotels, what have you. But let's focus on the hospitality industry. Why is employer brand so important for the hotel industry?
I think it's important for any industry, not just the hotel industry. And the reason I say that is because every industry is changing so fast with technology or anything. Everything changes so quick that when a company and we'll use hotels as an example. If you use Nashville, we were talking about Nashville the other day, how it grew so fast and exploded, and you're going to have a lot of jobs that might be open, so you need to fill those jobs. But who's going to come work for you? You want to be able to present that to the right candidates. So if they have 10 hotels they're going to choose from, what makes it right for them to want to work for your hotel? And that employer brand and that culture fit that you're selling is truly going to be a part of that and how you get to the superstar candidates.
Now, let's say you're a brand new hotel, or any industry for that matter, and you hear this brand new word called employer brand that you may have not necessarily thought of before. If you want a good, test of what your employer brand looks like, mm-hmm. Where can you look, at least to get a baseline to see where you are right now?
Forbes, the Forbes best companies to work for. And actually, if you just Google whatever best companies work for in whatever location you're at, whether it's Akron, Canton, whether it's Cleveland, whether it's San Francisco, every magazine that you might have in your neck of the woods or every newspaper, they're going to have something that's for that reason. And honestly, these people really try to make it so that people want to work for them. So it's very publicized when that happens. And of course, Forbes is the big one. Entrepreneur magazine has some, INC magazine has some, but look locally too. And then if you're trying to change your brand, I would say look locally and maybe try to network with people who are on that list.
Now, you're quite passionate about the employer brand. Obviously, we both are, otherwise we wouldn't have started the podcast. What is your hope or your dream that you hope to get out of the podcast? What is your wish, if you will, that people take away from the podcast?
just that not only companies want to learn and make the employer brand better, but employees who may be moving up in the world and are going to be the next managers or leaders that are leading teams, that they also take from that. Because I think that's part of the training process. I mean, everybody trains their culture, but if they can train something that is, innate, that would affect their employer brand, I think it's very important.
And if anyone wants to reach you, John, obviously we are partners together, how can they get a hold of you?
We have two. We can use the email, john@snellinghospitality.com, or you can do john@hospitality1to1.com, or also on LinkedIn as well.
That's great. And of course, we're going to put John's contact information up on the hospitality1to1.com website. And we do look forward to many more episodes of the Hospitality One-to-One podcast. John, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Chris. Keep up the great work.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.